There comes a time in life where you look back and the weight of what you've been through nearly breaks you. The memories, the betrayals, the regrets, they whisper in your ear at night and shout at you in the silence of your soul. You've cried alone. You've asked God why it happened like this. You've begged for a second chance, a different outcome, a rewind button that never existed. And maybe right now you feel stuck in a chapter that should have ended a long time ago. But hear me now. You are not your past. That pain, it was real. That heartbreak, it broke you, yes, but it did not end you. You're still breathing, still standing, still here. And that means something. That means God's not done. That means the next chapter of your life hasn't even been written yet. You don't have to carry the weight forever. It's time to move on, let go, and leave your past in the past. Not because it didn't matter, but because you matter more. Your future is calling. The question is, are you ready to stop looking back and finally walk forward? When life hands you something you didn't ask for, when the pain hits without a warning, your first instinct is to resist it. You try to understand why it happened, try to make sense of it all, and try to fight back time like somehow you can change what's already been written. But let me tell you something. Most people don't want to hear. Acceptance is not giving up. It's not waving a white flag in defeat. No, it's the first act of true strength. Because it takes more courage to face what's real than to keep pretending things are what they're not. It takes maturity to say, this happened, it hurt me, but I'm still here. You don't accept it because it was okay. You accept it because holding on is killing your spirit. Sometimes what's keeping you broken isn't the event. It's your refusal to let the event be what it was. You keep rewinding that moment in your head, replaying it, trying to change it with your thoughts. But the moment is gone, and all you're left with is your reaction to it. Acceptance doesn't mean you're weak. It means you're finally ready to walk forward instead of sitting in a place that no longer exists. We think fighting the past is strength, but real strength is choosing peace over war. You've got to understand. Your mind wants control. It wants answers. It wants fairness. And when life doesn't give it those things, it panics. You feel like you've been wrong, so you resist, and you stay stuck in that resistance like a record on repeat. But guess what? That doesn't fix anything. It drains you. And when you're drained, you stop showing up in the present. You stop living. You become a prisoner of what was. And some of you have been living there for years. You've worn that pain like it's part of your skin. But let me remind you, you are not your story. You are not the betrayal, the divorce, the mistake, or the failure. You're the person who survived it. And if you want to heal, really heal, you have to take that brave, quiet step and say it's over. I accept that it happened, but it does not get to control me anymore. That's power. That's how you start to breathe again. Acceptance is not about agreement. It's not about saying, I'm okay with what they did to me, or I'm okay that it ended like this. It's about looking pain in the eye and refusing to let it dictate the rest of your life. Because if you're not careful, your whole life becomes a reaction to a past event. You stop taking chances because you were betrayed once. You don't trust anyone because someone broke you. You sabotage your blessings because you feel like you don't deserve peace. But friend, you deserve peace. You deserve to sleep without reliving the same memory over and over. You deserve to smile without feeling guilt creep in. You deserve to look in the mirror and say, I may be scarred, but I'm not broken. And that only begins when you choose to accept that the pain happened, but so did your survival. You made it. And now it's time to give yourself permission to stop carrying what already crushed you once. You don't need to keep bleeding. You need to begin healing. And healing starts with truth. Sometimes people confuse denial with hope. They think if they keep believing hard enough, maybe the story will change. Maybe that person will come back and apologize. Maybe the ending will be different. But hope without truth is a trap. It keeps you chained to a future that's never coming. It leaves you waiting for closure, for justice, for understanding. And in the process, you lose yourself. You were never meant to put your healing in someone else's hands. You were never meant to wait on an apology to begin your freedom. The truth is, some things don't get tied up neatly. Some people never say sorry. Some answers never come. And you can either die waiting for those pieces, or you can accept that they may never come and still choose to live anyway. That doesn't mean you're okay with the pain. It means you're okay with moving forward in spite of it. That's what real strength is. Walking into your future without dragging every broken piece of the past with you. There is a quiet kind of power in acceptance, the kind that doesn't scream. It doesn't need to prove anything. It just sits in stillness and says, I don't need to fight this anymore. And maybe that's what you need right now. Not another plan, not another distraction, not another conversation with someone who doesn't understand your pain. Maybe what you need is a moment of truth with yourself. A moment where you stop pretending, stop resisting, and just breathe. It's in that stillness where your strength begins to rise. That's where peace begins to take root, because you're no longer using your energy to resist reality. You're using it to recover. And make no mistake, recovery is a full-time job. It's messy. It's uncomfortable. It requires grace and self-compassion, but it's possible. And it begins the moment you stop saying this shouldn't happen and start saying it did happen, and I will rise anyway. That's not weakness. That's the beginning of power that cannot be taken from you. The world tells us to keep fighting, to keep grinding, to never settle. But sometimes the bravest thing you can do is settle into acceptance. Not because you're okay with being hurt, but because you're done letting it define you. You're done letting the storm live inside your chest long after it passed. You're done carrying people in your heart who let go of you a long time ago. You've got places to go. You've got peace to build. You've got a future that needs your full attention. And you can't do that if your hands are full of what broke you. There's a version of you that's waiting on the other side of this pain. Wiser, freer, lighter. But you'll never meet them if you stay buried in what happened. You've got to choose yourself now. Choose to let it be what it was and move forward. That choice isn't easy, but it's necessary. Because healing is never about going back. It's about going through. And you are strong enough to walk through this, one step at a time. Think about all the time you've lost trying to rewrite history in your mind. All the nights you couldn't sleep. All the days that were colored by bitterness, resentment, confusion. You've given enough of your life to what hurt you. Don't give it another minute. Acceptance is how you reclaim your time. It's how you say, I've cried enough, I've wondered enough, now I live. You deserve to have days that aren't defined by what was taken from you. You deserve to experience joy without waiting for the past to interrupt it. You deserve love that doesn't have to fight through old pain to be received. But that starts with you. You have to let go, not because the past wasn't real, but because your future deserves space to breathe. When you accept your story, you stop running from it. And when you stop running from it, you finally start healing from it. And healing, real healing, that's the most powerful thing you will ever do. That's how you become untouchable, not because you're invincible, but because you're no longer imprisoned by your past. So if you're still holding on to the pain, the betrayal, the what ifs, the things you never got to say, hear this, it's okay to let go. It doesn't make you weak. It doesn't mean it didn't matter. It means you're strong enough to say, I want more than this. I want peace. I want freedom. I want life beyond this moment. And the moment you decide that, that's when everything starts to shift. That's when you feel your breath again. That's when the fog starts to lift. It's not about forgetting. It's about choosing not to live there anymore. You were never meant to stay in your pain. You were meant to walk through it, grow through it, and come out stronger. That strength begins when you stop resisting and start accepting. Let the past be the past. Let the pain be part of your story, but not the whole story. You've got more chapters to write, so pick up the pen, accept the scars, and write something new. You've got to stop reopening the wound just to see if they still care. You've got to stop sacrificing your peace for people who walked away without looking back. There comes a point where you have to ask yourself, why am I still bleeding for someone who left me to bleed alone? Why am I still holding the memory of someone who dropped me at my worst? The truth is, not everyone who enters your life is meant to stay. And not everyone who leaves deserves a return ticket. Yet you sit there stuck in the pain, trying to make sense of why they left, why they changed, why they hurt you like that. But the truth is, no amount of overthinking will change what already happened. Some people are broken in ways they don't even understand. Some people don't know how to love without conditions, without control, without damage. And you kept loving them through every crack, every silence, every betrayal. You bled so they wouldn't. But that kind of love only leaves you empty. It's time to stop bleeding for people who would and watch you die and still blamed you for your wounds. You owe yourself more than that. You really do. You gave them the best parts of you, didn't you? You gave your time, your trust, your heart, and maybe even pieces of your soul you never shared with anyone else. And in return, they gave you silence or lies, or worse, they gave you the cold reality of indifference. And yet, here you are, still bleeding for them, still hoping they'll wake up and realize what they lost. But let me tell you something that might sting. Some people don't regret hurting you. Some people don't look back. Not because you didn't matter, but because they were never capable of valuing you to begin with. That's not your fault. That's not your burden to carry. You need to stop making your healing dependent on someone else's recognition. They may never say sorry. They may never come back. And if they do, it'll be too late, because the version of you who bled for them, who cried and begged and stayed, that version doesn't exist anymore, and it shouldn't. You're evolving now. You're waking up to your worth. And bleeding for someone who walked away, that's not love. That's self-destruction dressed in loyalty. You deserve better than that. Every time you think about them, your chest tightens a little, doesn't it? Every memory is like a whisper reminding you of how much you gave and how little they returned. You walk through your days with a smile, but inside there's a quiet ache. The kind that doesn't scream, just sits heavy on your heart. You replay the conversations. You analyze the moments. You wonder what you could have done differently, how you could have loved them harder, held on tighter. But love shouldn't feel like a war zone. You shouldn't have to destroy yourself just to keep someone else warm. If they left, let them go. If they chose distance, honor their decision. Because every time you bleed for someone who didn't even offer a bandage, you dishonor your own soul. Healing isn't about pretending it didn't hurt. It's about choosing yourself even while it still hurts. You're not heartless for moving on. You're not cold for closing the door. You're just done sacrificing your spirit for someone who never asked if you were okay. And that shift from bleeding to breathing, that's what freedom feels like. That's when the pain finally starts to lose its grip on your life. They saw your value. They just hoped you'd never see it for yourself. They stayed close enough to take what they needed, but distant enough to avoid accountability. You were their comfort, their safety net, their emotional sponge, and you allowed it because your love was real. You gave without asking. You stayed even when your soul screamed to run. But now you're waking up. You're starting to see that someone who loves you doesn't let you suffer alone. Someone who loves you shows up, not just when it's easy, not just when they're lonely, but always. They speak with actions, not empty promises. And the person who left you bleeding, they showed you exactly who they were. Believe that. Believe what their absence says. Stop rewriting the story to make it feel better. Sometimes closure is just accepting the wound, stitching it up yourself, and walking away before it reopens again. You're allowed to choose peace. You're allowed to choose healing. And you're absolutely allowed to stop bleeding for someone who didn't even notice you were bleeding in the first place. Let's get something straight. Loyalty to someone who left you broken isn't loyalty, it's self-neglect. You keep calling it love, but all it's doing is dragging you down. You keep revisiting the pain like somehow you'll find a new answer if you stare at it long enough. But pain doesn't owe you closure. And the people who cause it, they often don't care enough to give it. That's the raw truth. And yes, it hurts like hell, but the longer you keep bleeding for them, the more you delay your own healing. You can't be their fixer, their redeemer, their savior, especially when they weren't even trying to be yours. You can't teach someone how to love you when they don't even respect you. You are not a rehab center for broken people who refuse to change. You are not a landfill for toxic love. You are a whole, valuable soul who deserves love that doesn't require pain to prove its depth. So let them go. Let the memory fade. Let the silence be the answer. Because sometimes loving yourself enough to walk away is the most powerful thing you can ever do. That's when your healing becomes louder than your hurt. You're still here. After everything, after the nights you cried alone, after the mornings you woke up and wondered if you'd ever feel normal again, after the storms that shattered you, after the days that felt endless, you're still standing. And that's not weakness. That's resilience. That's grace. That's strength. Most people will never understand. But don't waste that strength bleeding for people who didn't even flinch while you broke. Don't let their absence define your worth. You weren't too much. You weren't too emotional. You weren't the problem. You were human. You were honest. You loved with depth in a world that's terrified of feeling anything real. And they couldn't handle that. That's on them, not you. You don't need to dull your light to fit into the shadows where they left you. Shine anyway. Heal anyway. Love yourself anyway. Because your worth isn't tied to who stayed or who walked away. Your worth is in you. And the moment you stop bleeding for people who never even offered a hand is the moment you begin to feel the freedom of healing that doesn't depend on anyone else. You've apologized too many times for your emotions. You've excused too many people for hurting you. You've bled and called it love. But now it's time to stop. Time to rebuild. Time to speak to yourself like someone who deserves kindness. Because you do. You've got to start treating yourself like someone worth fighting for. That means setting boundaries. That means letting go of relationships that only exist in memory. That means forgiving yourself for not knowing better, for staying too long, for loving too hard. But it also means refusing to keep watering a dead garden. If they couldn't love you when you were giving everything, they don't deserve a single drop of you now. Stop giving CPR to situations that were never alive to begin with. Stop trying to resuscitate something that only ever took your breath away. You don't owe anyone your continued suffering. You don't need to bleed to prove your love. The love that's meant for you won't leave you empty. It won't ask you to shrink. It won't watch you bleed. It will pour back into you what you pour out. So give that love to yourself first. Every day. Every moment. Without apology. And here's the truth you need to hear, even if it's hard. The bleeding stops when you decide it does. Not when they come back. Not when they say sorry. Not when they finally realize what they lost. No, the bleeding stops when you close the chapter. When you finally say enough. When you stop romanticizing pain and start honoring your peace. That's the moment your life begins to turn. Because the greatest act of love is choosing yourself, especially after someone else didn't. Because the greatest act of love is choosing yourself, especially after someone else didn't. The healing doesn't come in waves of vengeance or bitterness. It comes in the quiet decision to rise, to wipe the tears, to delete the messages, to stop looking back. You don't need them to validate your pain. You don't need them to regret leaving. You just need you to show up for you. And when you do, when you stop bleeding for people who didn't even bring a bandage, you realize something powerful. You were the medicine all along. You were always the cure. Now it's time to stop bleeding and start living. You've been dragging your past like it's chained to your ankle, haven't you? Like every mistake, every heartbreak, every wrong turn you've taken is some kind of eternal punishment you can't escape. You walk through life with invisible weight, apologizing for the person you used to be, carrying shame that was never meant to follow you this far. But listen closely. Your past was never designed to be your prison. It was meant to be your teacher. It was meant to shape you, not shatter you. The pain you felt back then, it had a purpose. The failure you went through, it carried wisdom. The people who hurt you, they were lessons in disguise. But you're still looking back like you're not allowed to move forward. You replay your lowest moments like they define you, but they don't. They refine you. And every time you let your past dictate your present, you deny yourself the possibility of change. You are not your worst day. You are not your regrets. You are not the version of yourself that didn't know any better. You are who you choose to become, not who you were. Your past is a chapter, not the whole book. Don't let it close your story. There are people who will try to remind you of who you used to be because it makes them feel better about where they are. They'll bring up your mistakes, your wrong choices, your weakest moments, not to help you heal, but to keep you small. And if you're not careful, you'll start believing them. You'll start thinking that because you messed up back then, you don't deserve a clean slate. But that's a lie. Growth means owning what you've done, but not letting it chain you to a version of yourself that no longer exists. It's okay to admit you didn't always get it right. It's okay to say that was me, but it's not me anymore. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your evolution. You don't have to keep proving that you've changed. The fact that you're standing after everything you've been through, that's proof enough. And if they can't see that, let them go. You don't rise for their approval. You rise because your soul was never meant to stay stuck in shame. You were born to learn, to grow, to rise again. That's what the past is for, not to haunt you, but to shape the strength that's taken root in you now. Think about how many times you've replayed the same moments in your head, the argument, the loss, the moment you broke someone's heart, or when someone shattered yours. You carry it around like a scarlet letter, like your worth is measured by your wounds. But what if I told you, healing isn't about erasing the past. It's about seeing it differently. You didn't fail because you failed. You failed only if you stayed there, and you didn't. You're still here. That means you've already won in ways you haven't even acknowledged yet. The past is not a life sentence, it's a lesson plan. And the lessons aren't meant to punish you, they're meant to prepare you. Every betrayal taught you who not to trust. Every heartbreak taught you how to value your own heart. Every mistake taught you where to place your boundaries. You didn't just survive your past. You gained wisdom from it, but wisdom means nothing if you keep returning to the place where you lost yourself. Stop asking old versions of yourself for advice. Start asking the future version of you, what's next? That's the person who knows your strength. That's the version that's waiting for you to finally move forward without guilt. Sometimes the hardest part isn't what happened, it's forgiving yourself for letting it happen. You sit in silence, wondering why you didn't see the signs sooner, why you stayed too long, why you gave too much. And that guilt creeps in like poison, whispering that maybe you deserve the pain, but you didn't. You were doing the best you could with what you knew at the time. You loved with an open heart. You trusted because you believed in people. You held on because you thought things would get better. That's not weakness, that's humanity. And you're allowed to forgive yourself for not knowing what you know now. Growth means showing compassion to the version of you that didn't yet have the wisdom you carry today. You are not broken. You're becoming. The more you hold space for your past self with grace, the more free you become. Not from the past itself, but from the guilt that tries to keep you there. Stop blaming yourself for not having the clarity you only have now because of what you went through. The lesson is enough. You don't need to carry the sentence anymore. You've earned your freedom. You just have to accept it. There's power in choosing not to live in the echo of your mistakes. You see, some people replay their failures like a soundtrack on loop. They wake up every day and remind themselves of the shame, the pain, the regret. But your mind is not a courtroom. You are not on trial. There is no judge keeping score of how many times you fell. Life is not a sentence to be served. It's a journey to be lived. And journeys include detours, breakdowns, dead ends. You've had yours, yes, but they are not the end of your road. They are a part of your route. Every wrong turn taught you something the easy path never could. That's not failure, that's foundation. You don't have to keep punishing yourself for where you've been. You're allowed to move on without dragging the guilt with you. You're allowed to smile again, to dream again, to breathe again without explaining why you're no longer living in regret. The moment you stop identifying with your past is the moment you begin designing your future. Let the lesson live, but let the sentence go. You've been behind emotional bars long enough. It's time to walk out into freedom, where your future finally gets to begin. People will try to define you by the worst thing you've done or the hardest season you've lived through. They'll try to reduce you to a headline, a mistake, a decision you made when you were still learning. But their definition of you is none of your business. You don't need to shrink to fit their memory of you. You don't need to keep explaining that you've changed. You just need to walk in the strength that comes from surviving what was meant to break you. Walk in the sunlight that was transparent to snow. See light that was meant to break you. The most dangerous thing you can do is agree with a version of yourself that no longer exists. You are not obligated to keep being the person who made those mistakes. Growth is real. Change is possible. Redemption is not a fantasy. It's a choice. And you get to choose it every single day. Your past may have taught you lessons the hard way, but it didn't end you. It refined you. Stop living like you're still on probation. You've already been pardoned by your own healing. Now live like you believe it. The past is not your identity. It's a shadow behind you. Let your light shine forward, not backward. There's something sacred about realizing you are no longer that broken version of yourself. The moment it hits you that you survived, that you rose from the ashes of your worst days, is the moment you reclaim your life. You begin to feel your strength again, not just physically, but emotionally, spiritually. And you start to see the beauty in the cracks. The past didn't ruin you, it revealed you. It introduced you to your resilience. It opened your eyes to what you deserve. And now you walk differently. You don't accept what you used to. You don't chase what once left you. That's growth. That's freedom. But only if you allow yourself to step fully into it. Don't let nostalgia for the past keep you tied to a place where you almost lost yourself. Don't let memories trick you into thinking pain was comfort. Healing is hard, yes, but going back is harder. You were not meant to be defined by what hurt you. You were meant to rise because of it. You're not who you were, and you never have to be again. Your story doesn't end with regret. It continues with redemption. The sentence ended the day you chose healing. So maybe it's time you finally said it out loud. That happened, but it doesn't own me anymore. Because that's what healing sounds like. That's what freedom looks like, owning your past without letting it own you. You can visit it, learn from it, feel it, but you don't have to live in it. You don't have to keep opening old wounds just to prove you remember. You're not dishonoring your pain by moving on. You're honoring your growth. You're not forgetting your past. You're refusing to be defined by it. That's courage. That's maturity. That's power. You are not trapped in yesterday. You are not sentenced to shame. You are not obligated to live a life dictated by who you used to be. Today is new. This moment is yours, and you get to write the rest of the story. Not from guilt, not from fear, but from wisdom. Let the lesson guide you, not the guilt. Let the growth empower you, not the memory. Your past was never a prison. It was a process. And you are finally free to live beyond it. You just have to believe you are. And once you do, everything begins to change. Forgiveness isn't about them. It's not about letting someone off the hook for what they did. It's not about pretending it didn't hurt or acting like it didn't matter. It's about you. It's about choosing to stop letting that pain dominate your life. Because every time you hold on to the anger, the betrayal, the disappointment, you're handing over your peace to someone who already took enough. You're giving power to the wound instead of the healing. Forgiveness is not weakness. It's not surrender. It's strength. It's saying, I will not carry this poison any longer. Because make no mistake, resentment is poison. It seeps into your thoughts, your choices, your energy. It keeps you shackled to a moment you can't change. But forgiveness, real forgiveness, is a release. Not a denial of what happened, but a decision that what happened will not define you. You forgive so you can sleep at night. You forgive so you can breathe again. You forgive because your future deserves more space than your past. This isn't about them deserving your grace. It's about you deserving your freedom. And you can't walk forward with clarity while dragging a chain of resentment behind you. So you forgive, not because they earned it, but because you need it. When you forgive, you're not saying, it's okay that you hurt me. You're saying, it's not okay, but I'm done letting it control me. That's a powerful shift. Because what they did might have changed you, wounded you, altered the way you trust, but it doesn't have to own you. There's nothing noble about replaying the pain over and over like a broken record. There's no trophy for suffering silently with a heart full of bitterness. You've cried enough. You've carried the weight long enough. Forgiveness is your way of saying, I matter more than what you did to me. It's self-respect in its highest form. Not everyone will understand your decision to forgive, and that's okay, because forgiveness isn't for their closure, it's for your peace. You may never get the apology you deserve. You may never hear the words, I'm sorry, but you don't need that to heal. Healing is your responsibility. Closure is an inside job. And when you decide to forgive, you're not excusing their behavior. You're taking your power back. You're refusing to be a prisoner of pain. You're rising above the narrative of victimhood and writing a new one. One where you're free, whole, and unshackled by yesterday's wounds. Sometimes the hardest person to forgive is yourself. You look in the mirror and see all the ways you fell short. The mistakes you made, the people you let down, the chances you didn't take, and that voice in your head whispers, you should have known better. But here's the truth. You were doing the best you could with the knowledge, the tools, the strength you had at the time. Stop punishing yourself for not having the wisdom that only experience can bring. Growth requires grace. Healing starts when you look at your past self and say, I forgive you. Not because you were perfect, but because you were human. And humans make mistakes. That's how we learn. That's how we evolve. You don't get to where you are without a few broken steps along the way. And every step, no matter how painful, brought you here to this moment of reflection, of courage, of healing. You deserve to be free, not just from what others did to you, but from what you've done to yourself. Stop carrying shame that no longer belongs to the person you're becoming. Forgiveness isn't just something you offer to others. It's a gift you give to your own heart. People confuse forgiveness with reconciliation, but they are not the same. Forgiveness doesn't mean you invite the person back into your life. It doesn't mean you trust them again or that things go back to how they were. Forgiveness is about release, not reunion. You can forgive someone and still choose to walk away. You can forgive and still protect your boundaries. Because forgiveness is an inside job. It's not about changing them, it's about changing what lives inside you. The anger, the pain, the constant internal dialogue of why did they do this to me? It keeps you stuck. It burns emotional fuel you could be using to build something better. You've been carrying that weight long enough. Letting go doesn't mean you condone what happened. It means you're brave enough to say, I won't let this define my life. That's real freedom. You don't need their permission to heal. You don't need their participation to move forward. The moment you choose to forgive is the moment you unchain yourself from the past. And that moment, that decision is yours alone. You owe it to yourself to release the burden. You owe it to your future to walk lighter. You owe it to your peace. There's a quiet strength in forgiving when nobody sees it, when no one cheers you on, when you're alone with your thoughts, wrestling with the question, why should I let this go? That's the moment when character is built. Because it's easy to hold a grudge. It's easy to say, they don't deserve my forgiveness. And maybe they don't, but you do. You deserve the peace that comes from no longer being emotionally chained to someone else's choices. You deserve the lightness that comes when you finally put the weight down. Forgiveness isn't a performance. It's not for likes, applause, or validation. It's a sacred internal shift. It's a decision to no longer bleed from a wound that isn't fresh. Yes, the memory may still sting, but your life isn't meant to be lived in pain. You have joy waiting for you, love waiting for you, purpose, and none of that can fully bloom if bitterness is still rooted in your soil. So dig it up, pull it out, let the healing begin, because your heart was not meant to be a battleground. It was meant to be whole. And forgiveness is how you make it whole again. It's strange how the people who hurt us the most often live rent-free in our minds. We think about what we should have said, how we should have left earlier, how we could have protected ourselves. And every time we replay those moments, we give them space they haven't earned. But forgiveness is how you evict them. It's how you say, you don't get to live in my head anymore. You don't need to keep rehearsing pain to validate it happened. It happened. It hurt. But that chapter is over. What matters now is what you do with the rest of the story. Forgiveness is not erasing, it's evolving. It's using the wound as a window to your strength. It's how you reclaim your mind, your joy, your clarity, because your thoughts shape your life. And if they're constantly circling around old hurt, there's no space for new beginnings. You don't heal by holding on. You heal by releasing, by making peace with the fact that you can't change the past, but you can change how it affects your present. That's the power you've had all along. You just need to choose it. Choose peace over pain. Choose growth over grudge. Choose freedom over fury. Choose you. There are people who will never say sorry. People who will go about their lives as if they didn't leave you shattered, as if your pain was invisible. And that will hurt. It will burn in your chest like a silent scream. But waiting for their apology is like waiting for a ship that's never coming. Do not hold your healing hostage to someone else's awareness. Some people are incapable of understanding the damage they cause. Some don't care, and some simply don't have the emotional maturity to face what they did. That's not on you. What is on you is whether you let that absence keep you broken. You have the power to forgive without ever hearing "I'm sorry." You have the strength to rise without ever getting closure, because the truth is, you don't need their remorse to move on. You need your own decision. A decision that says, my peace matters more than their acknowledgement. That's where your freedom lives. In the choice to say, this chapter's done. And I'm not rereading it anymore. You can heal without their participation. You can forgive without their awareness, because forgiveness was never about them. It was always about setting you free. Forgiveness doesn't mean you forget. It means you remember without reliving. You remember with wisdom, not with wounds. You look back and see how far you've come, not how broken you were. That's what growth looks like. It's quiet, it's internal, it's slow, but it's powerful. And the more you practice forgiveness, the more you realize it's a daily choice. Some days you'll feel the anger creep back in. The resentment will whisper, they don't deserve your peace. But that's when you remind yourself, you're not forgiving for them. You're forgiving for you. For your future, for your joy, for the ability to love again, to trust again, to breathe without bitterness. The past has no right to choke your present, not if you choose to release it. Forgiveness is the final act of reclaiming your life. It's the moment you stop being the victim of someone else's decision and start becoming the author of your own healing. And that's where everything changes, not because they finally said sorry, but because you finally said, I'm done bleeding for this. That's what forgiveness sounds like. That's what strength feels like. And that's what sets your soul free. You don't owe anyone an explanation for protecting your peace. When someone drains your energy, disrespects your boundaries, or consistently shows up in ways that harm your spirit, you have every right to create distance. Without guilt, without debate, and without apology. Too often we feel like we need to justify our need for space. We worry about how we'll be perceived or if we're being too harsh. But self-preservation is not cruelty, it's wisdom. It's recognizing that you can't keep sacrificing your well-being to maintain connections that only weigh you down. You're not being cold, you're being conscious. You've outgrown situations where you had to shrink yourself just to keep the peace. Now, peace is non-negotiable. And if someone gets offended because you're no longer available for their chaos, manipulation, or inconsistency, that's not your problem to fix. Creating distance doesn't mean you hate them. It doesn't mean you wish them harm. It simply means you love yourself enough to say, this is as close as you get to me now. People who value your presence won't question your boundaries. They'll honor them. And the ones who don't, they never had your best interests at heart anyway. You don't need to apologize for choosing yourself. There's a myth that says being a good person means being endlessly available. That you must always explain, always answer, always give people the benefit of the doubt, even when they've shown you who they truly are. But the truth is, emotional availability should be earned, not assumed. Just because someone has access to you doesn't mean they have a right to stay close to you. Creating distance isn't about being rude or disrespectful. It's about being intentional. It's about understanding who deserves your time, your energy, your presence. And sometimes the people you need distance from are the ones you once loved most. But love without respect is not love worth holding on to. You can care about someone and still decide that proximity to them is harmful. You can hold memories without holding space. You can let go without making a scene. No explanations, no drama, no long emotional speeches, just quiet, firm distance. People who force you to choose between their comfort and your sanity aren't people you owe an apology to. They're people you owe clarity and distance. And sometimes the most powerful thing you can do for your growth is to walk away in silence and let your peace speak for you. It's hard at first, especially when you're the type who loves deeply, who forgives quickly, who sees the best in people even when they've shown you the worst. You'll wrestle with guilt. You'll second guess yourself. You'll wonder if maybe you were too harsh, too quick, too cold. But there comes a point where your heart is no longer a doormat, where your patience isn't a free pass for disrespect, where you finally realize that preserving your peace matters more than preserving someone else's comfort. Growth demands space, and not everyone deserves to grow with you. Some people will only see your worth when you're no longer easily accessible. Let them. That's not cruelty. It's clarity. You can't continue giving to those who only take. You can't keep explaining your pain to those who benefit from your silence. Distance doesn't mean disloyalty, it means discernment. It means knowing when a relationship has run its course, even if there's no big fallout. It's okay to drift. It's okay to stop answering. It's okay to pull away. Not every decision needs a discussion. Sometimes the strongest boundary is one that's never announced but clearly enforced. And the right people will never need an apology for your peace. You've been taught to always be kind, but kindness doesn't mean setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. It doesn't mean tolerating disrespect, manipulation, or one-sided loyalty. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for yourself is to walk away quietly and reclaim your space. Not because you stopped caring, but because you finally started caring about yourself. People who misunderstand your silence were never listening to your voice anyway. You don't owe a phone call, a text, or a breakdown of why you're distancing yourself. Your energy tells the truth. Your absence speaks volumes. Those who care will feel it. Those who don't will replace you. And that's the painful beauty of distance. It reveals who was there for you and who was there for what you could give. Let people feel the space you leave behind. Let them wonder. Let them reflect. But don't let their confusion become your burden. You have every right to evolve beyond toxic patterns. Every right to protect your heart from emotional erosion. This isn't revenge, it's rebirth. And rebirth requires room. Room to breathe, to think, to recalibrate. You don't need to explain your healing. You just need to walk in it. Quietly, powerfully, unapologetically. The problem is we think we need permission to disconnect. We think there must be some dramatic incident, a betrayal, a blowout to justify our distance. But sometimes the most valid reason to step back is simply this doesn't feel right anymore. Your intuition isn't lying to you. When your soul feels uneasy, when you start dreading conversations, when you feel drained every time you interact with someone, you don't need to wait until things are unbearable to choose peace. You're allowed to say this no longer serves me and walk away without explanation. Because not all relationships end with war, some end with wisdom. The wisdom to know that consistency matters more than history. That how someone makes you feel matters more than how long you've known them. Distance is not always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. It's space to rediscover who you are without the noise of people who never truly saw you. And the most powerful part, you don't have to hate anyone to outgrow them. You just have to love yourself enough to prioritize your mental and emotional health. So if it feels heavy, if it feels forced, if it feels fake, let it go. Quietly, without guilt, without apology. You're not cold. You're not heartless. You're healing. And healing sometimes looks like solitude, like silence, like missed calls and unanswered messages, like choosing not to engage with people who trigger your past pain. That's not avoidance, that's awareness. It's recognizing that not everyone deserves front row access to your life, especially if they only show up when it benefits them. Distance allows you to see clearly, to observe patterns without emotional fog. To ask yourself, how do I feel after spending time with this person? If the answer is anxious, exhausted, or small, that's your sign. You're not abandoning people. You're reclaiming yourself. And the people who truly love you will understand that. They won't require explanations. They'll support your need for space. And those who don't, they were never invested in your well-being. They were invested in your availability. There's a difference. And once you realize that, you stop feeling guilty, you stop apologizing for disappearing, because healing isn't about keeping everyone comfortable, it's about keeping yourself safe. You deserve to protect your light. You deserve to protect your heart. And sometimes that means going quiet, not out of bitterness, but out of deep, necessary love for yourself. People may call you selfish when you start choosing yourself. Let them. They're used to your compliance, not your confidence. They're used to access, not boundaries. But the moment you start saying no, the moment you stop over-explaining, you'll see who truly respects you and who only tolerated your silence. Creating distance doesn't make you a bad person. It makes you a person who finally understands their value. You're not required to stay close to people out of history, guilt, or obligation. You're not responsible for how others react to your growth. If someone is offended by your boundaries, that's proof they benefited from your lack of them. Let that sink in. You're allowed to evolve beyond relationships that once made sense, but no longer align with who you're becoming. You're allowed to reevaluate who gets your time, energy, and emotional investment. This is your life. And proximity is a privilege, not a right. Not everyone who starts the journey with you is meant to finish it with you. And the most liberating act of self-love is creating space without seeking approval. You don't owe them comfort. You don't owe them closure. You owe yourself freedom. At some point, you stop chasing people who don't check on you. You stop forcing conversation, stop initiating connection, stop bending over backwards just to be included. And in that moment, you realize how peaceful distance can be, how clarity comes when you're no longer emotionally entangled with people who drain more than they pour. You learn that silence isn't emptiness, it's healing. And that walking away isn't failure, it's wisdom. The older you get, the more you value quiet peace over loud dysfunction. You choose solitude over fake loyalty. You choose depth over proximity. Not because you're bitter, but because you're better at seeing through the noise, better at protecting your energy, better at loving yourself. You don't need to explain your boundaries to anyone who truly values you. They'll respect the space. They'll understand the need for quiet. And those who don't, let them fall away. That's nature making room for better connections. You are not heartless for pulling away. You are heart smart. You are prioritizing your healing, your peace, your growth, and you're doing it without apology. Because you've finally learned not everyone deserves access to the most sacred parts of you. Distance is your filter. Use it wisely. The truth is, the past will always try to pull you back through memories, regrets, doubts, and what-ifs. But the only direction that will serve your growth is forward. Focusing forward doesn't mean you deny what happened. It means you refuse to live there. It means you're committed to building a life that isn't anchored to pain, failure, or betrayal. Every time you glance behind too long, you slow your momentum. You doubt yourself. You start second-guessing your choices. But forward is where healing happens. Forward is where opportunities exist. It's where your best self waits. You've survived what tried to break you. You've endured what was meant to stop you. That alone proves that forward is not just a direction, it's your calling. You can't change what's already happened, but you can shape what's coming. The future doesn't care about your past, it only cares about what you're willing to do now. Let your scars be reminders of your resilience, not reasons to stay stuck. You don't belong in yesterday. You're not who you were then. You've grown, you've evolved. So stop turning around hoping to fix what already showed you the truth. Keep your eyes on the road ahead. That's where your power lies. When you spend too much time looking back, you miss what's right in front of you. You miss chances to grow. You miss people who are meant to walk with you now because your focus is stuck on those who left. Forward thinking isn't just about goals, it's about perspective. It's choosing to believe that what's ahead can be better than what's behind, even if you're still carrying pieces of the past. Yes, it's hard, especially when the past has been loud, messy, and painful. But living there only rewinds the pain. You don't heal by reopening old wounds every day. You heal by taking one brave step into the unknown and trusting that something better is waiting. Your past didn't destroy you, it shaped you. But it doesn't define you. There's no freedom in clinging to old identities, old stories, or old versions of yourself. You have to release them so you can move, so you can breathe, so you can grow into who you were meant to become. You weren't created to replay your failures. You were built to learn from them and rise. Keep your head and heart forward. That's the only way your soul expands. That's where progress lives. Sometimes we get trapped in the rearview mirror, obsessing over people who hurt us, opportunities we missed, and decisions we wish we could redo. But no amount of rumination will rewrite the past. What's done is done. You can revisit the past for wisdom, but you cannot live there and expect peace. The more time you give to what's behind you, the less energy you have for what's possible. Forward focus is a discipline. It means acknowledging your pain but not being ruled by it. It means feeling the sting of disappointment, but choosing not to let it shape your identity. You're not the mistakes you made. You're not the relationships that ended. You're not the moments you fell short. You're the strength that kept going. You're the courage that refused to stay stuck. Forward is for the dreamers, for the fighters, for the ones who believe that the best chapter hasn't been written yet. Let the past be a chapter, not the whole book. Let it inform you, not imprison you. Your vision should always be greater than your memory, because what you look at longest becomes your direction. So look ahead. That's where your answers are. That's where your destiny waits. People often underestimate the power of forward focus because they're emotionally tied to what's familiar, even if it's harmful. But familiarity doesn't mean safety. Just because you know the pain doesn't mean you should keep reliving it. Forward focus is scary because it asks you to release control. It asks you to walk into uncertainty with hope, not fear. It demands that you believe in what you haven't seen yet, but that's where transformation lives, in the unknown. You're not being asked to forget your past. You're being asked to rise above it, to use it as fuel, not a cage. Every time you choose to focus forward, you're rewriting the story. You're breaking patterns. You're telling your mind, I am no longer available for things that keep me small. And that's revolutionary. Because forward motion, no matter how slow, will always beat staying stuck. You don't need to have it all figured out to move. You just need to take the next right step. And then another, and another. Each one gets you closer to the life you deserve. A life not dictated by fear or regret, but by vision, intention, and hope. Keep walking. Keep dreaming. Keep building. The past has nothing new to say. The hardest part about focusing forward is learning to stop carrying everyone and everything with you. Not all relationships are meant to survive your growth. Not every situation deserves to follow you into your future. Some things, some people are chapters, not your entire story. It's okay to leave behind what doesn't serve your purpose anymore. You're not heartless for letting go. You're just making room for alignment. The version of you that's focused forward is lighter, freer, wiser. That version of you knows that peace isn't found by chasing closure. It's found by accepting the lesson and choosing not to repeat it. You're allowed to release guilt. You're allowed to stop explaining yourself to people committed to misunderstanding you. Forward focus means protecting your vision. It means turning your energy away from the noise and toward your goals. Every step forward is a statement. I choose progress. I choose healing. I choose myself. And when you finally stop looking back, you'll realize just how much weight you were carrying. You'll feel it in your breath, your thoughts, your pace. You'll remember who you were before life taught you to settle. Forward is where your fire reignites. And it only burns brighter with each brave step. When you lock your focus on forward, everything begins to shift. Your mindset starts changing. You become more intentional about how you spend your time, who you allow into your space, and what you tolerate. You stop engaging in battles that drain you. You stop replaying stories that no longer serve you. Forward focus means operating from vision, not emotion. It means you're no longer held hostage by temporary feelings or past disappointments. You're moving with purpose now. You understand that your time is precious and your energy is sacred. You've wasted enough of both on people and situations that were never meant to grow with you. Now, your eyes are fixed on what builds you, stretches you, and elevates you. This doesn't mean life gets easier. It means you get stronger. You get clearer. You stop being reactive and start becoming proactive. You set goals that scare you a little and excite you a lot. You start living with fire in your belly and peace in your mind. That's what forward focus does. It brings you back to yourself. Not the broken self, but the bold one. The one who refuses to let setbacks define the storyline. The one who walks forward, even when the path is steep. You've come too far to look back now. You've cried too many tears, overcome too many battles, grown through too many storms to retreat to who you used to be. The forward path might be uncertain, but it's yours. It's where your evolution unfolds. You weren't meant to stay the same. You're supposed to shift, to expand, to rise. And every time you feel tempted to revisit the past, Remind yourself of why you started. Remind yourself of the pain you promised you wouldn't repeat. Remind yourself of the vision that kept you going when you had every reason to quit. Forward focus is commitment. It's waking up each day and choosing to fight for the version of you that's still being formed. It's being patient with the process, even when progress feels slow. Don't let nostalgia trick you into settling. Don't let comfort become your cage. You're not moving forward because it's easy. You're moving forward because you're worth it. Because what's ahead of you has more power to heal and transform than anything behind you ever did. Let that be your motivation. Let that be your reason. You're on your way to something greater. Keep walking like you believe it. Eventually, forward becomes your default. Not because you forget where you've been, but because you finally accepted that your past isn't where your story ends. You begin to see every setback as a setup, every loss as a lesson, every delay as divine preparation. You stop begging for doors that closed and start building new ones. You stop waiting for people to validate your worth and start honoring it yourself. Your forward focus isn't just a direction. It becomes a lifestyle. You walk with clarity. You speak with intention. You love yourself enough to let go of what keeps you small. And when fear creeps in, as it always will, you meet it with faith. You remind yourself that you've survived before and you will again. That your purpose is greater than your pain. That every step forward is proof you're still in the fight. And that's what makes you powerful. Not perfection, but persistence. Not having all the answers, but the courage to keep moving. So don't let the past dictate your future. Don't let regret have the final word. Your focus belongs to the future, to what can be, to who you're becoming. Keep going. Your best days are not behind you. They're unfolding with every step forward. Everything you've been through, everything you've overcome, and every painful lesson you've carried was never meant to hold you back. It was meant to push you forward. Life isn't about standing still in the memories of yesterday or replaying what could have been. It's about choosing every single day to focus on what's ahead. Your past may have shaped you, but it doesn't define you. It gave you the wisdom to see clearly, the strength to rise from rock bottom, and the courage to believe that better is still possible. Focusing forward is about shifting your energy toward growth, toward healing, toward the life you actually deserve, not the one someone else limited you to. When you stop apologizing for growing, stop trying to explain your evolution, and stop dragging old pain into new beginnings, you free yourself. You don't owe your past anything except gratitude for the lessons. And you don't need to prove your worth to anyone who failed to see it. Choosing to focus forward is not about forgetting, it's about forgiving yourself, reclaiming your power, and building a future rooted in truth, strength, and intention. It's a declaration that your dreams are more powerful than your fears, and your purpose is greater than your past. Keep your eyes on the road in front of you. Keep honoring your journey, protect your peace, nurture your vision, and surround yourself with people and places that remind you of who you're becoming, not who you used to be. The direction you choose now will either keep you stuck or launch you into everything you were meant for. So walk boldly, speak kindly to yourself, and never doubt that you're exactly where you're supposed to be, as long as you keep moving forward. Thank you for allowing these words to speak into your spirit. May they fuel your steps, steady your heart, and guide your vision. Keep growing, keep believing, and keep becoming. God bless you.